Welcome to the Vocational Expert Views Channel. We're a new channel where we will discuss vocational issues surrounding disability and work limitations. Most of our videos will be focused on the VA disability system as well as the Social Security disability system. However, we will do videos on earning capacity, family and divorce, personal injury, and other areas where vocational experts are used. Today, we're going to look at a disability case that was denied due to the individual had limited medical evidence. However, the medical evidence they did have in the file, they didn't use properly. They didn't have a representative. They weren't able to present their work limitations properly to the judge, and they didn't have a vocational review of their file. Let's take a look at what the judge reviewed and considered. This is from a decision, and basically the judge is going and evaluating the claimant's subjective complaints. The undersigned, which is the judge, considered the information provided by the claimant, including testimony provided at the hearing. This claimant was saying they were unable to work due to a stroke and MRSA. She said that she had difficulty walking and standing and limited walking ability. She testified in court that she consistently needed her walker. However, that wasn't substantiated in her medical records. She reported issues with lifting, squatting, bending, reaching, and kneeling. At the hearing, the claimant testified she had difficulty with balancing after her stroke. And because of this is why she said she needed a walker or cane for ambulation. Let's look at the work limitations. She says she's unable to work due to a stroke and MRSA. Now, in testimony, she stated that she was only able to walk for 20 minutes. In her medical records, there was walking without a cane. There was a lot of stuff in her medical records about use of a cane. Very little information about consistent use of a walker. However, she testified to the judge that she needed to constantly use her walker. She reported that she's only able to stand for 10 to 15 minutes at a time, and again, that she would use a walker when doing this. She stated she had problems with lifting, squatting, bending, reaching, and kneeling, as well as balance. However, these weren't presented very well in her medical evidence. And as I stated earlier, she didn't have a vocational review, so there wasn't a vocational expert that was able to help find these things in her records or help her get this type of information for her case. She also reported having issues with headaches with one to two times a week. There was some reports of headaches in her medical records that was discussed, but nothing at that level. So, because the individual's medical records didn't meet a medical and psychological grid, when you get a judge's decision from Social Security, you're going to see a segment that looks like this. The claimant does not have an impairment or combination of impairments that meets or medically equals the severity of one of the listed impairments. And of course, the CFR is the Code of Federal Regulations, and so basically the judge is saying, the evidence before me doesn't meet a medical or psychological grid. So when they do this, they're looking for medical signs, symptoms, laboratory findings, and a functional degree of limitations that meet a certain standard. Now, these standards sometimes aren't very well defined. And again, that's where it's best if you would have a Social Security attorney or a representative. If you're in the VA system, again, a VA attorney or a VA representative to help you with some of these gray areas in this. Because this claimant's case, now that we have established that this claimant wasn't able to meet a medical or psychological grid, this case is going to be now reviewed and considered solely on vocational terms and issues. And this is where a lot of claimants, are lost because they feel like everything should be medical evidence and what they report. And when it comes to vocational terms and issues, Most people haven't studied these, so they're not exactly sure what they are or even how to attack them. And as I stated earlier, this claimant didn't have a vocational evaluation. So, again, the evidence wasn't written up or presented in vocational terms. So, let's look at this individual's past relevant work. So, this individual's past relevant work was a sales clerk. And basically, this is a retail sales clerk. You'll see these at I'm old school, so I'm fixing to say Sears and JCPenney. JCPenney does still exist, but it's super rare to find a Sears. There are some sales clerk at Walmart, some of your smaller stores. The DOT code is the Dictionary of Occupational Titles code, and you don't really need to be aware of that. The sales clerk is a light duty position. This is light duty due to standing and walking. There is some lifting involved in this, and a lot of times that lifting is above the sedentary level. And the SVP, which is specific vocational preparation, is a 3, which is considered semi-skilled. This individual also was a dental lab technician. Again, you have the DOT code there. The exertion level for this is light, and this is because the dental lab technician is primarily standing on their feet. They do some short distance walking. There is some periodic sitting. Sometimes they do have to lift over 20 pounds, not very often, and this is a skilled job. So let's take a look at what we know already. The individual already stated that they had standing limitations. So basically, these jobs, if the judge takes the standing limitations, these jobs most likely are going to be eliminated. It depends on how long the standing limitation is for. Again, walking limitations are going to affect these jobs. However, just because these jobs do have a lot of standing and walking doesn't mean it's going to knock out both of these occupations in aggregate. And what I mean by that is it could knock them out as performed, how this person did it at their specific employer. However, let's be honest, there are some sales clerk positions where the clerk basically is sitting most of the day and has a sit-stand option periodically throughout the day. So that's where you have to get specific on the standing and walking limitations. Now, the use of a cane, that's not going to eliminate, if we just look at that individually, that's not necessarily going to eliminate the retail sales clerk. However, the dental lab technician, that occupation is going to need both hands when standing and walking, so that's going to be eliminated. The use of the walker. Now, the judge in this case didn't accept the fact that the walker had to be used constantly. And use of a walker would be seen as a job accommodation, which would knock both of these occupations out in the Social Security disability system as well as the VA disability system. However, there are some employers that will allow this as a job accommodation, and I state that for some individuals who are wanting to work. But as we all know, most people watching this video are looking for work limitations that makes them unemployable. The individual did have issues with bending and stooping. However, the bending and stooping requirements or the postural requirements of these occupations were not at a level where the bending and stooping that was presented would eliminate these occupations. Now, the individual did say they had problems with lifting. However, they weren't really able to quantify that. And so the judge went to sedentary, not due to the lifting requirements. They really went to the sedentary level due to the standing and walking. Individuals said they weren't able to crawl, and these two jobs do not require crawling. Squatting, these jobs don't require squatting at a level. Now, yes, there are going to be times where the dental lab technician or sales clerk does have to squat if they have to drop something and pick it up. However, doing something like that once or twice a day isn't considered a postural movement according to the selected characteristics occupations or the revised handbook analyzing jobs, and therefore in the DOT. So squatting's not an issue. Now, this individual did discuss issues with reaching. However, there was nothing in the medical records that quantified this in any way. In addition, in testimony, she couldn't really quantify this in any way. So therefore, reaching could be an issue with these jobs if we look at that independently. However, that wasn't the case in these issues. In addition, the judge did allow some mental limitations due to the stroke and based on medical evidence. So the judge did knock out semi-skilled and skilled jobs. So with this case, this is what the hypothetical, the judge usually presents 5 or 6 different hypotheticals, but when they write up the decision, generally they stick with just one hypothetical. So after careful consideration of the entire record, the undersigned, again, which is the judge, finds that the claimant has the residual functional capacity to perform sedentary work. And sedentary work does have a valid definition, and you can find it in the Code of Federal Regulations, or maybe I'll do a video and I'll just tell you what it is. The exceptions to this would to be able to use a walker or a cane for rough terrain, which basically means uneven ground, but you're not going to see that in sedentary jobs. So again, this is why a sedentary job would be available. Or long ambulation. Again, sedentary jobs have less than 2 hours standing and walking, so there's not going to be long ambulation, and therefore, when it comes to sedentary jobs, the use of a cane or a walker in this situation is a non-issue. Additionally, standing in one place would be limited to only 10 to 15 minutes at a time. Again, sedentary jobs, very little standing, and it's rare that a sedentary job is going to require you to stand more than 10 to 15 minutes at a time. So this is a non-issue for sedentary jobs. She should never use ladders, ropes, and scaffolds, and only occasionally climbing of ramps and stairs. So with sedentary jobs, based on the fact that there is less than 2 hours standing and walking, ropes, ladders, stairs, scaffolds, not going to be an issue at all. So it has no limitations for sedentary. Stooping, kneeling, crouching, and crawling. Again, because she's put down to sedentary jobs cannot be rated on stooping, kneeling, crouching, and crawling because there is less than 2 hours standing and walking. You have to have more than 2 hours standing and walking in order to get some ratings on stooping, kneeling, crouching, and crawling. She would be capable of frequent balancing. She should avoid a concentrated exposure to extreme heat and all hazards. However, most jobs do not have exposure to extreme heat or hazards. If you want an example of extreme heat, that's like working inside an oven or a furnace. Finally, she would be limited to simple, routine, and repetitive tasks and low-stress work, defined as only occasional changes in a work setting or occasional decision making. So simple, routine, repetitive work or unskilled work is automatically considered little to no decision making, basically really no decision making. So a lot of judges and raters are aware that the hypo presented above would show some light duty work. However, a lot of times they go ahead and just cut and go straight for sedentary work, even though they would be able to find some light duty jobs. Able to sit for extended periods of time. This individual was able to do that, therefore sedentary jobs would fit. As I stated earlier, the cane really is a non-issue with sedentary work. There is some rare examples, and I've had hypotheticals where they were presented where it was an issue, but really 99% of the time, a cane does not affect sedentary work. Now, if this claimant had an attorney or representative, they would have pushed the use of the walker in getting to and from the workstation. Again, simple, routine, repetitive work, simple, routine, and repetitive task. So if you're a claimant and you're trying to do your case by yourself, how are you going to overcome these things? So this individual, the disability was denied and jobs were found and they weren't challenged. So what did the vocational expert find as far as jobs? Well, there's document preparer. Right there's the DOT code. It's a sedentary job. It's an SVP2 job, which means it's unskilled, simple, routine, repetitive work. And then they reported the approximate number of jobs in the economy. Another one is the food and beverage order clerk. Again, sedentary, unskilled, and printed circuit board. And it says screener here, but it's really assembler. And there's a DOT code, sedentary, SVP2, simple, unskilled work. So now, if this individual had a work limitation where they wouldn't be able to interact with other people, the food and beverage clerk does have some people interaction in it. That's not an issue in this case. However, if it was an issue in this case, that's how you would attack that job right there. As I stated, the circuit board assembly and the docket preparer, these individuals are going to be sitting down. There's going to be little to no standing and walking, little to no lifting involved. And this is where you need a representative, a vocational expert to review your case to see where your evidence is. Do you need more evidence? A vocational person can find ways to get more evidence. We can do restrictions and limitation forms with your doctor. Also, if you notice in the hypothetical, the judge doesn't say anything about migraines. So it was in the claimant's file a little bit. However, it wasn't presented properly and it wasn't developed properly. Had this been developed properly, you could attack these jobs with some work limitations due to the migraines. In addition, the claimant alluded to certain reaching limitations, but again, it wasn't well documented in the medical evidence, and reaching would have eliminated these jobs had it been a certain level. So that's our video for today. If you're interested in expert evaluation, you can schedule a personal consultation with us. You can email us here at this level, email, and